Back in World War II, the Allies were trying to figure out how to improve the survivability of their bombers. The Nazis were just knocking them out of the sky like nothing. What the scientists did, they needed to figure out, okay, we need to armor these planes better, but we have to figure out where to put it. If you just cover the entire thing in armor, extra armor, yeah, you're probably not going to shoot down the plane, but it's also not going to take off. If you put armor in the wrong spots, it's not going to fucking matter. You know, you're still going to get planes getting shot down, right? So they needed to figure this out. So what they did, they had their pilots carry a little piece of paper that had a picture of the plane, cross-section top down of their plane. And they told them, listen, when you come back, we want you to mark every spot that your plane was hit. Okay, so they would send off the bombers. Some would come back, some didn't. The ones that came back, the pilots would plot out everywhere that they got hit. Eventually, when you start getting a bunch of bombers and you start laying these little pictures, you begin to see a clear picture. And so once the scientists had a clear picture of what they were working with, they look at the picture and they're like, okay, so we see here that the majority of damage taken is at the tip of the wings, the tail, and the cockpit. So pretty simple, armor up the cockpit. Let's reinforce the wings and the tail. But then along comes Abraham Wald, a mathematician, scientist, very smart guy. He's like, hold on, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're going to put armor on these planes based on some markings that you did? That makes no sense. And everyone's like, what are you talking about? What do you mean it doesn't make sense? He's like, look, you're worried about the planes that are not coming back, correct? Right? Look at all these planes. You know what they all have in common? They all came back. And you know what else they have in common? They can be hit in these spots and still come back. And it's like, fuck, man, you look at the plane, you're looking at the blue piece of paper that shows you where it is. It's like, fuck, man, I didn't think about that. Most people didn't think about it because he applied something that isn't talked about a whole lot. It's called survivorship bias. So survivorship bias is what you would consider is when you only take into account the surviving or winning group and completely disregarding the unfavorable group, the non-survivors. And so he looks and he's like, okay, what you want to do is not arm the plates where they're being shot at. You want to put armor in the spots where they're not being shot at. Again, these are the spots where they can get shot and come back. The proof is in the pudding. They're here. And you marked it. The planes that are not coming back are being shot between the cockpit, the tail, and between the cockpit and the wing. And so they essentially inverted, right? They started to put armor where there wasn't any bullet holes. And it improved. It improved and it worked. Who knows how many countless lives Abraham Wald saved simply by applying that technique, survivorship bias. Now, how does this apply in the practical world? We do this all the fucking time. Let me name off some names. David Goggins, Jocko Willig. You can go to artists like Dua Lipa, Drake, Food, Anthony Bourdain, Marco Pierre White, Dominic Crenn, Bobby Fillet, Gordon Ramsay. I mean, the list goes on of people that we deem successes, right? But see, by doing that, by just focusing on the success stories, you're not looking at the entire picture. You're not looking at the bigger picture. Let me give you another example of survivorship bias. Think about music. Music is one of the best things I love hearing about fucking boring boomers. Boring people talk about fucking music. Old music was just so much better. Oh my God, they made old, like the real hits, they don't make music like they used to anymore. Oh, the quality's just better. Actually, that's wrong. Because here's what's going on. You're looking at a finished product, but with one eye closed. Whereas right now we're experiencing new music in real time. And what do I mean by that? You're completely ignoring all the shit music that came out in the 60s. You're ignoring all the shit music that came out in the 70s, music that is unlistenable. Who wants to listen to them? Those songs are forgotten in time. I'm sure there's obscure songs that are not popular, that wouldn't make a top 40, wouldn't make it on the radio from back in the day, from the 80s, the 70s, the 90s. You're like, dude, why didn't this song should be bigger. This song is so underrated. Some of these songs are forever lost to history. Right now, in the present, we're being bombarded by everything. We're being bombarded by the good music, the bad music, the good music, the bad music, good and bad, good and bad, good and bad. And what does that do to us? We feel like music right now is just shitty or too commercialized or just like, it's just trash, right? And these SoundCloud rappers, these fucking artificial pop stars, blah, blah, blah. But back in the day, you're not talking about the music that sucks. Because there was music that sucked just as much back in the 70s, 60s, 50s, 70s, 80s, all that shit. But you're never going to hear about it again. When you look at a group of people who are successful, you're essentially looking at a monopoly of survivors. Does that sound right? Yeah, well, there's a survivorship. There's a monopoly on survivorship. And those people make the rules. Those people tell you, this is how we did it. This is how we do it. And I'm not saying that it's wrong. Look, Gordon Ramsay telling you to be humble and get out of your own way when learning, that's not bad advice. Saying, hey, you know what, you got to go and work and you got to really give it your best, that's not bad advice. Working, hey, you got to go and work with the best chefs that's not bad advice. Fuck, man, if you're able to travel and go work different kitchens in different parts of the world, do it. It doesn't mean you're going to be successful. Get that. No, stop. You can wake up every day 100%, fuck 100%, 110%, 4:30 in the morning, cold ass shower. No, after you get out of your shower, no technology. You get your coffee ready, you do your daily meditation, your silence, whatever it is, because that's what the guy said in the book. And then you're going to go because your exec chef told you to give 1,000%. And now you're going in your weekend. I once had a chef's like, look, man, you want to succeed, you're going to have to sacrifice time with your family. Great. Let's fucking do. You can have all the knowledge. The knowledge, right, might encourage you to put more of your eggs in one basket. The knowledge that you're attaining might inspire you to really hone in on someone's path. But it's not a guarantee that you're going to make it to the top of the mountain, to that path. What's a great example in a kitchen that I've experienced? Nepotism, right? Think about that. Can you imagine busting your ass, working or doing everything right, the way you're asked to, just so someone can come and be like, hey, this is my daughter, this is my son, this is my son-in-law, this is my daughter-in-law. They're going to be your new chef. And you're just like, bro, are you fucking kidding me right now? I've had situations where, there's a line, a line of succession as to who gets promoted and stuff like that. I've seen HR go to cooks and try to convince them not to quit by offering them positions in new restaurants. I know one cook who was dragged across 3 different restaurants, and each time empty promises, empty promises, empty promises. What about him? What about the guy that does everything right? What about the person that 100% shows up every day? Whether you're working for that raise or you're working for the promotion, you're working to better your situation in the way that you consider successful. You do everything just for what? The son-in-law to come and take your spot? It's not your spot, but it's fuck, man, that's really discouraging. That's really fucking discouraging. What does that tell the rest of the fucking staff? Give 100%, give 100%. It might not help you. So nepotism is one. Simple case, simple case, just empty promises. Again, we want to listen to people that are successful because they're successful. Why would you not? I'm not saying that there's bad advice in it. But to completely disregard the other group, not the people that just didn't make it, you're missing on so much information. You're missing the whole picture. You think someone that spent 2 weeks lost in the wood who comes back, right? Let's say there's 2 people lost in the wood. One of them dies and the other one survives. How'd you do it? Well, I had the will to live. And I just told myself, no, I'm going to make it. You don't think the other person did? You don't think that everyone who's not at the top of the pyramid doesn't have drive, doesn't have focus, doesn't give 100%? I'm sure there's people who are not successful who put in way the fuck more effort than I could ever put in. And you will never hear about them because of unknown factors. Nepotism, favoritism at work. Maybe the boss just simply doesn't like you, and guess what? You're never going to go above and beyond anything else in that company. Maybe, you're going to school, you want to be whatever, a lawyer, and then bam, you got to go home because you got to go take care of your parents because maybe one of them is sick. No one really gives a shit what the failures or people that didn't make it have to say. No one gives a shit about them. And it's really sad. Because I think you could learn a lot from people who just didn't make it. To me, it's almost like, yeah, okay, that's like the success stuff is like the obvious stuff. Like I remember going in service to a line, right? And I would tell myself, like once I learn a station, stop putting certain things in the forefront of your mind. Right? Like, for instance, I would learn a dish, right? And then for that week, that dish was the main thing I focused. Once I had that dish down, once I could do that dish with my hands closed, once I had my station in a way where I could just close my hands and reach and grab it, I wouldn't. Because I always felt like, okay, if I'm focusing on my strengths, I'm not focusing on my weaknesses. I'm not focusing on areas I could improve in. When I'm giving you advice, when I'm telling you guys, hey, man, this is what you should do, here's a little tips and tricks. There's so many factors that I'm not accounting for. There's so many, how I react to things is going to be completely different. Not everyone is going to go on a podcast and just put out your company's dirty laundry because you feel it contributes to the culture in a bigger way. But I did. In some multiverse, maybe I did that, and then I'm thinking, man, this is the worst mistake ever. If maybe right now, I don't think it was the worst mistake ever. I think it was exactly what I needed to do and wouldn't have played out any other way. I will do that time and time and time again. I mean, look at anyone that's ever succeeded, right? Just literally, like look at someone who you deem successful, the owner of wherever you work, right? That person's probably you'd call successful. Let's go back in time to that point before they made that it decision. Do you think anyone would have seen the success that person would have been at that time? Probably not. Right? But they made a decision and it catapulted them. And through hindsight, through 2020 hindsight, they're able to see things more clearly. Like, this is what I did. This is what I got right. I this, and that. But the truth is, at that time, at that moment of just surviving, who the fuck knows, man? Don't think that people that are successful have it figured out, because they don't. Just like us, they fuck up every day. Just like us, they'll do one thing and it just doesn't go their way. They don't know, people always say, it's like, man, I just make it up as I go along. That is so fucking true. Most of us, everyone just makes it up as they go along. Some people do everything wrong and somehow end up winning. Some people do everything right and somehow life just takes a big fat turd on them. Again, I'm not saying you need to disregard your heroes, the people you look up to, successful people. But following just that alone isn't going to help you at all. Listening to just them isn't going to help you. You just 100% every day. That's not going to help you. No one knows. I couldn't tell you. There's kind of like an anticlimactic way to sort of like wrap things up. But no, I can't tell you what the route is. You do. But I'll leave you with a positive note. The greatest thing about survivorship bias, because again, just because the people at the top say this is what you have to do, right? How many, again, there's a list of people that did that and maybe more, but they didn't fucking make it, right? I think they should encourage you to take risks. They should give you the self-confidence to really listen to yourself. I think most of us, or at least people watching this, are intelligent enough to know what is a good decision worth risking versus a bad decision worth risking. A person that just like listens blindly to someone, I got to show up every day. Okay. 100%. Okay. Sacrifice. Okay. Got to do that. 100%. You're feeding this person dreams. You're feeding this person just the good shit, and you're not even telling them like, hey, you know what? For every person that made it, there's 20 more that are never going to make it. Right? So, aside from just opening your mind and listening to people that didn't make it, listen to their stories, you know? Why didn't they make it? There's so many factors that go in. I don't think we're told we ought to trust ourselves enough, you know? We look at paths to the top, and they're sort of like the safe routes. But the truth is, our lives are different. Your life is different than mine. My life is different than yours. And all of us have to carve our own path. You can imitate, you can follow someone else's path. But again, you're not going to react to those same situations, to the X factors the way they do. You're not going to have that moment of luck that maybe someone else had. There's so many factors that go in. It is more than just following a path. It's more than just following the fucking rules. It's uncertain. Nobody knows. I mean, I don't know how this shit works. It's some universal cosmic shit. So what I'm going to tell you is just listen to yourself. You know what's a good risk, what's a bad risk. Listen to yourself. I mean, fuck, man. Sometimes listening to yourself is telling your fucking chef to go fuck off. And that might be the right decision for you. And that's okay. I think, just showing up, I think, is important. You can do things that increase your odds. But that shit may never happen. So I guess my advice to you is adjust. Instead of putting one egg in that basket, instead of just like, I'm going to give it my all and that's it, peace out. Approach life with, what if you don't get anything that you want? What if that shit just is not in the cards for you, right? You did everything by the book. You read all the books. You did everything and you still didn't. I want you to trust yourself. I want you to listen to yourself. And I want you, just the way you need to develop muscle memory, I want you to develop the gut feeling. You need to listen to your gut. And sometimes that gut feeling might stray you from what makes sense. But you got one life to live, man. You don't take the gamble. I mean, fuck, people more successful than you took the gamble and made it. Just the same way, people less successful than you took a gamble and didn't make it. It's a 50-50, man. It's a 50-50. It's your life. Go live it, man. Don't let me or anyone else tell you that, hey, man, this is how I did it, and how fucking dare you. No, how dare you? Fuck you. Anyway, I thought this was a really interesting little thing. Survivorship bias. When I first read about it, I'm like, what the? It was like, it blew my mind. And it was like uncovering another half of a picture that I never saw before, and everything that I do, that I've done, makes so much more sense, whether it's something that didn't fall through or something that did go my way. But I think, like I said, ultimately what it did to me is it gave me the confidence and courage to really listen to myself, especially when, say, in situations you're going to be like, everyone around you is going to tell you that's the wrong decision, but you got to trust yourself, man, and take accountability for yourself, okay? Because when that shit goes right, it's on you. But also when that shit goes wrong, it's not necessarily on you. We don't know about the factors, but don't, be easy on yourself. Don't beat yourself up too hard. Figure out what makes you happy. Figure out what the priorities in your life are. Family, friends, a healthy work-life balance. You do you, boo, okay? Anyway, have a great service. I'll see you guys later. Bye.